Imagine you were at a busy train station. People everywhere. Some talking, some yelling, noise all around. A train is coming and the announcer says, "Sydney train approaching." There is a chance that you will hear the correct thing, but you might misinterpret it, or worse, miss it altogether. Instead of hearing "Sydney train approach," your brain hears "Cindy is a cockroach." It doesn't make sense, and your brain goes into overdrive, concentrating, trying to figure out what was said. When our brain interprets things correctly, it is easy to follow through with a response or action. But when it misinterprets something, it stops performing its normal function and concentrates on solving the puzzle at hand. The same is true with our vestibular system. When it doesn't interpret information correctly, the same confusion happens. When everything is working as it should, this system acts like an air traffic controller. All the information that enters our brain through our various senses hits the vestibular system first, and its job is to direct it to all the other senses. Problems occur when the controller misinterprets information or is confused about where to send the information. Sometimes they may even slow down or snooze or miss something completely. A vestibular system that is not functioning correctly will affect how we learn and our behaviour. Your system may even be like Wi-Fi that keeps dropping out, giving intermittent signals, leaving you to guess what goes in between. When this happens, you might just zone out. Some of us use movement to get this system into gear. We might rock, or spin, or jump, or shake our head. Movement stimulates this system and gives us energy. Have you ever been falling asleep and shaken your head to make yourself more alert? We can actually concentrate better while doing all that. In fact, some of us discover that we like to move all the time. The vestibular system also has to do with balance. Most people don't know that it's a lot easier to balance when we are moving than when we are standing still. Think about when we learn to ride a bike. It's much harder to balance when the bike is going slowly than when it's going fast. Being stationary also makes us more tired. If you have to stand for long periods, moving a little will result in less fatigue. Have you ever wondered why you get so tired on a long flight? Part of the reason is to do with your vestibular system not being active. You will be less fatigued if you get up and walk around every now and then, instead of just sitting the whole time. With children who move all the time, some people may think, well, there's a hyper kid. But there is a good chance that he is a smart kid that's worked out that it's a lot easier to balance when they're moving. Most people don't realize that standing still or sitting still requires the highest level of balance. And people don't realize that a poorly functioning vestibular system can keep the cortex in the brain worrying about keeping upright and balanced, leaving no time to do its own job. The surface of the brain is called the cerebral cortex. Although it is less than 1/2 centimetre thick, it is critical in your ability to move, to understand what we see and what we hear and think. It's a complex process of making decisions, learning, remembering, and planning. So if it is busy just trying to work out which way is up, it is not free to process all of these other functions, and some of these are compromised, and then we see delays and/or deficits. The vestibular system is a set of sensors near the middle ear that are very sensitive to where your head is in space. As a baby learns to walk, when he falls backwards and sits on his bottom rather than forwards onto his face. This is the vestibular system protecting the body. After we've learned to walk, if you trip on a step or slip on a floor, the first thing you do instinctively is put your hand out to stop you falling on your face. This is also driven by the vestibular system. Within fractions of a second, it spurs the motor system into action to prevent yourself from serious damage. But what if our vestibular system gets too much instead of too little information? When that happens, we're going to avoid movement. You won't like sports, hanging upside down, swinging, or roller coasters, and you may even feel nauseous just riding in a car. Like a tripod for a camera, our vestibular system is also supposed to keep our eyes still, so images aren't bouncing all over the place. Have you ever watched a home video where the camera keeps moving? When our vestibular system is not working correctly, that is how we see the world, and books if we are trying to read. Motion sickness occurs when the vestibular system is telling the brain something different from what the visual system is telling the brain. Astronauts were sick for the first 3 to 5 days in orbit because without gravity, the system that relies on gravity to tell your brain where your body is no longer functions. So they completely lost the part of their vestibular system that tells them if they were tilting their head or rotating, etc., or whether that is down or that is down. There is a complete loss of matching what they're seeing and what they are feeling. But it's not all bad news. We can get our vestibular system in shape so that our other senses get the right information and the cortex part of the brain is free to do its own job. Doing movement early gives us a chance to train this system to interpret information correctly. The result of a vestibular system who does its job effectively is a better organised brain.